Okay, since I got all those Batman games under my belt, figured it's time we talk about another game about a billionaire playboy genius. Iron Man, one of Marvel's premier members of the Avengers and one of their hottest properties as of late. It seems hard to imagine, but there was a time when old Shellhead wasn't the center of attention. It was more or less a B-list superhero. All that changed back in 2008 when the character made his cinematic debut, which not only skyrocketed his popularity, but have also kicked off a series of films which have been around for over 10 years and are still continuing to this very day. Another trope of the time is that with major movie blockbusters, there would usually be a video game that would accompany its release. And that was definitely the case with Iron Man and some other Phase 1 MCU movies, which were published by Sega, which you know who they are. For this video, we're primarily focusing on the Xbox 360 version. There is a PS2 version as well, but that deserves a video all to itself. Can the Armored Avenger deliver? Well, let's find out and start the video proper.
So I'm not going to give a plot recap because it follows the plot of the film, and also, just watch the movie. They did get some talent from the movie to voice their video game counterparts, including Gwyneth Paltrow, Terrence Howard. Hell, they even got Robert Downey Jr. for the cutscenes only.
Why?
It's probably a good thing Jeff Bridges wasn't brought in, although I will say that his stand-in, Fred Tatasciore, is the only one who has any real effort put in. As for Jarvis, they definitely got a robot to play him.
I've been given a second chance, and look, I'm using it to kick some ass.
Do not understand ass-kicking in reference, sir.
Remind me to give you some kind of personality, Jarvis.
The last thing I'm going to note is the villains they added, which include Titanium Man, Madam Mask, and even Whiplash before they put him in the sequel, which is kind of surreal, honestly.
So, on to the gameplay.
I figure we'll start with flight because you'll be doing this the most. So to hover, you need to hold the left trigger halfway, and to gain altitude, that requires you to pull the trigger all the way. In a hover, you can dodge missiles and such by holding the A button, and to fly ahead, you do that by holding the left bumper. While flying, you can boost by holding the A button, and damn does it come in handy. Honestly, I really enjoy flying around in this game. It takes some getting used to, and it can be disorienting at first, but you'll get the hang of it in no time. Moving on to combat, you can fire your repulsors by holding the right trigger, and as for your unibeam, you'll press and hold the right bumper. You can fire missiles with the Y button and punch with the B button. Also by holding the B button, you can tear apart vehicles and such and perform a takedown on ground enemies. Honestly, it kind of feels pointless doing anything other than holding the right trigger. The unibeam leaves you wide open while having an incredibly slow charge up, and punching things isn't necessary, especially when you're in the air most of the time. Besides that, all of your methods of attack just feel really weak, which is just plain wrong, especially since you're Iron Man. Speaking of useless, you can divert power to flight, weapons, etc. with the press of the D-pad. It's just that nothing feels different when you do this, and you'll probably forget about it as you continue through the game. Overall, the controls are really comfortable, and it's probably my favorite aspect of the game. Despite not using anything other than the triggers, nothing is overly complicated to pull off, and it just feels really smooth and responsive.
I guess we can go over the other stuff, which isn't much.
So there's 13 missions in total, with most of them consisting of you fighting hordes of drones, tanks, or a boss battle. Variety in location isn't really a thing either. Most of the time it's just a desert, but every once in a while you'll visit some other places, including a cityscape, an Arctic base, or even a flying carrier, which is probably my favorite level. Bosses aren't really worth mentioning, since most of them go down like your typical enemy, except for the last one. Fuck you, Obadiah. As for regular enemies, it's the usual robots, jets, soldiers, etc. But that leads into my biggest issue I have with this game.
So before I started recording footage, I decided to try the game out on normal, just to test it out, and the first couple missions weren't that bad, but as soon as I got to mission 3, that's when all my memories came flooding back onto why picking normal is wrong.
Literally everything is thrown at you, including the kitchen sink, and it's goddamn irritating. They probably didn't want this game to be a cakewalk, but jeez, they went overboard with all the bullets, bombs, and shit coming towards you. Another issue I have with the levels is that they're just too damn short. Assuming you don't care about the side objectives, which are a thing, and you're just focusing on the main missions, you can beat the game in just a few hours, which is ludicrous no matter what game you're playing, especially for a game released in 2008 of all years. So after every level, you earn a certain amount of money depending on how much you do, which in turn you can use to buy upgrades, and they're meh. I just don't see much of a difference, and if I do, it's only a slight improvement. The only other thing to do in this game is the one-man army mode, which is, well, let me explain it. Basically, you're set in an area which you have to kill 80 enemies in 10 minutes. I'm gonna repeat that. 80 enemies in 10 minutes. They aren't worth playing, but if you do beat them, you earn a pretty kick-ass reward. Each mission unlocks a comic book outfit for you to wear, and these are pretty nice. My favorites are definitely the Extremis suit, the classic armor, and this unique Hulkbuster design made specifically for this game. Another thing to note is that 2 of these outfits are platform exclusive, so if you have a 360, it's the Silver Centurion armor, and for PS3 owners, you get the Ultimate armor. Even though the suits look alright, everything else does not. From bland environments to low quality models, even the cutscenes look bad. I mean, look at anemic Pepper Potts and shit-faced Tony Stark.
Guess that falls in line with Tony being an alcoholic.
Last thing to talk about is the music. It sucks. It's just the most generic stock music you can find in a mediocre action movie. They don't even have the Iron Man theme. Even the PS2 version had it, which is more or less a crime in some parts of the world.
Alright, anyway, what are my final thoughts on this game?
Iron Man the game is bad on pretty much all fronts, but if I'm being honest, there's a few things that I could still have fun with. The game controls like a dream, and the suits are a nice bonus, but everything else is lackluster to say the least. From the ball-busting enemy AI, ugly design, non-existent plot, and voice acting which could be done better by a plank of wood, it's probably in your best interest to leave this one wherever you find it. If you somehow have an interest, try and spend less than $5, since I feel it isn't worth any more than that.
Well, that was an interesting start to the Marvel Marathon. The next review, we're looking at a movie tie-in that people actually like. So with that said, next time we meet, it's X-Men Origins Wolverine's time to shine. Until then, I hope you all have a great night, thank you all so much for watching, and take care of yourselves.